Hey YouTube, it's your girl Chic from Chic Say What. I am here on this Sunday to come to you with some information, some tea that I've gathered pertaining to Nicki Minaj and her husband, Kenneth Petty. The saga continues, y'all. Like when I say it's one thing after another with this couple, before we get even started, just if you could like, share, subscribe, hit that bell so you know when I go live and you don't miss out. So let's get into it. Nicki Minaj, Kenneth Petty. So recently, within the last couple of days, I would say it came out that there has been a lawsuit filed against the Pettys. Let's see. This lawsuit, I'll share my screen so we can you can see what I came across. It says Nicki Minaj and Kenneth Petty sued by his sexual assault accuser. Listen, do y'all feel like Nicki Minaj's name comes up more with drama pertaining to her husband, the father of her child, than it does pertaining to her music, her career, any products she got going on? Like, excuse me. I feel like it's been more negativity surrounding her name since she hooked up with Kenneth Petty. Yeah, and then there was even with her brother, there was negative things floating around, pertaining to her brother, which he's now locked up behind, assault on a child. So it's like everything that we hear about her, it hasn't been, it's like 90% of it hasn't been in a good light. So I'm wondering, has she really sat and really thought about it from that standpoint? Like, okay, I would presume that, she loves this man, and given that she's taking these risks and the risk of her career taking a hit for being with this man, given what his track record looks like, I do understand that we all have a past. However, when you're a person in a certain position, the people you align yourself with, you have to be concerned about their past, because it will come up. And when it will come up, you have to factor in if that will then impact your brand in a negative way. So it's layers to it. It's more than, oh, I love him, this is who I want to be with. You have to take it a step further from that and say, okay, if I do choose to be with this person and make my life with this person, and people aren't feeling that, and my brand take a hit, am I okay with that? Can I still survive? So these are things that have to be factored in, when you're somebody that's high profile and we're making decisions in regards to our life partners. So I'll share my screen to bring up the article that I came across pertaining to the lawsuit. Nicki Minaj and husband Kenneth Petty sued by his sexual assault accuser. So this article's on eonline.com. Nicki Minaj and Kenneth Petty were sued by the woman he was convicted of attempting to rape in 1994. The suit alleges the couple harassed her, and Minaj tried to bribe her to recant the rape claim. Nicki Minaj and her husband are being sued by a woman he attempted to. Okay, so that's the same thing. So the woman's name, it's public, it's out there. Jennifer Hugh, now 43, is accusing both Nicki Minaj and Petty of witness intimidation and international and neglect infliction of emotional distress as well as harassment, assault, battery, sexual assault, and sexual harassment in civil lawsuits filed in New York, in a civil lawsuit filed in New York on August 13th and obtained by E! News. She says that the years following her attempted rape, Minaj has used her celebrity platform to bash Hugh. As an example, she alleges Minaj told a radio station in 2019 that Petty was wrongly accused. According to the lawsuit, Minaj publicly posted in 2018 to defend her husband, writing, Kenneth was 15, she was 16, and in a relationship, but go off internet. Hugh says she was never in a relationship with Petty and simply knew him from the neighborhood, adding that the Superbass rappers claim is harassment. So, what are your thoughts pertaining to that? I will say on another content creators platform, I guess it's been about maybe going close to maybe about a year, maybe a little more than a year. I heard Jennifer, is that her name? Because at the time they were calling her Jen, I believe. So I heard Jennifer interview with this content creator and provide her side of what happened. And I'll just try to reflect back on like that story because it was like a pretty intense conversation. But, she made the decision to go out, to put her side out there. So Jen said, she was a teenager. Can't remember if she said she was 15 or 16, but she said that while she was walking to the bus stop, basically that's when she alleges that Petty approached her. They had a little small talk conversation. She alleged that he was known for having, aggressive personality. So she kind of wanted to, not make him mad, but still be cordial and be like, hey, and as she proceeded to walk past him, he kind of came up from behind her and like something, I believe she said maybe he had some like poked in her back. It's like as though maybe it was a weapon, and he was like, keep walking, and guided her basically to his home where he held her captive and raped her, and she managed to escape from that situation and go to school and kind of report it from there. So that was her version of what happened, which does not line up with what Nicki Minaj has put out there with what she's saying happened as far as Kenneth and the woman Jennifer been in a relationship. Jennifer said she was not in a relationship with Kenneth Petty. However, she knew him from the neighborhood. Really, their families knew each other, but she was not in a relationship with him. So she also talked about during that interview receiving, kind of being harassed. I also heard, during my research where, Jennifer alleges that Nicki, part of one of the times where she attempted to bribe her with changing her story, was offering to fly her and her family to Los Angeles. Now, I don't know what kind of bribe that is to get a flight ticket to go somewhere in exchange for you recanting your story, but that is what, what I came across in my research that was alleged that Jennifer Hugh had, said. She also alleged that Nicki Minaj had offered her like $500,000 to recant her story. So that was like a second attempt to get her to recant her story. So again, this is all alleged. I would imagine like, Jennifer would have to provide receipts for everything since she is the person who is putting the suit out. So from my understanding with how lawsuits work, she has the burden of producing the proof since she's the one who's initiating the lawsuit. I know in the interview that I did hear Jennifer do, she talked about phone conversations and things with people. So I don't know, if there was maybe some text message, what kind of proof that she can have, but I don't recall when I did hear her do her interview, her talking about having like receipts, like proof, like for her to provide. I don't think she even brought up lawsuit. It was just a matter of, hey, this is my side. It's my truth. I'm speaking out because I don't like that people are putting out there. I don't like that Nicki is putting out there that we had a whole relationship. Because I also heard that Nicki Minaj was saying, okay, well, the reason why I guess Jennifer switched her story and, called it a rape is because I guess of the whole underage situation, almost like to protect herself so she wouldn't, get in trouble with the family and stuff, I guess, because of the whole difference in age or something like that. So this has been ongoing for some years, guys. So the information I'm telling you that's not in this article I'm sharing you is just things that I'm recalling that I've heard pertaining to this situation. YouTube didn't tell me you were live. Listen, Brittany, thanks for checking in. I don't know how I hear a lot of content creators talk about not getting notifications. I get them here and there for people I follow. So, hopefully it gets better, but I'm happy that you were able to see that I was on to jump on. So, so thank you. I'm going ahead and talking about Nicki Minaj, Kenneth Petty. You asked that I kind of cover this. So I did some research and I had some information just already because I had been following it just on YouTube through, another content creator that I follow. So I'm just trying to put all the pieces together. If anybody has anything in addition that they want to add that maybe they may be aware of or heard, drop it in the comments so we can all converse about it, because it's layers to this. There's so many moving parts. There's so many moving parts pertaining to the story. And I've been hearing how like a lot of content creators talking about how hard the barbs go, and it's just like, it is what it is. I'm not even on here to judge or anything like that. I'm just here to just present what's out there and just get the conversation popping and to see like what's going on, like what is it looking like it's going to happen. I want to say there was something that came out. I think he had, I know he had like pending court dates and things like that pertaining to his case, because if you guys can recall, at one point he had gotten in trouble for not registering as an offender, I guess when he had relocated. So that was kind of like a big thing because he didn't register. And I remember he had some like pending court cases, excuse me, pertaining to that. And I don't think, or I haven't heard anything about like any final decision being made if pertaining to when he had that, I guess you would call it a parole violation. Because Brittany, let me see, what are you saying, Brittany? So was Kenneth an adult when he was in a relationship with this woman? That would be statutory rape. But I get that, excuse me, that is a little different than a violent rape. According to the interview that Jen had with another content creator, she was saying, I want to say they both were under 18. I knew that. She either said they were 15 and 16 or they both 15, but it was like 15, 16. So we weren't really dealing with an underage situation from, what she talked about as far as the time when everything happened. She said she was in high school at that time, but like he wasn't 18, or I don't even think she said he was 17. If I can recall, I think their ages were like 15, 16. But she said it definitely wasn't like a consensual situation. She knew him, but she's like, she didn't like interact with him like that. Like she was like that day that they had that incident when she saw at the bus station, at the bus stop, she was just like in her mind, oh my God, okay, let me just try to keep it together. I don't want to kind of no problems. Let me be cordial. I'm trying to get to school. And that was kind of like the vibe she said she was putting off, because she was like, she always considered him to be kind of an intimidating kind of person. He had a reputation in the community from what Jen said in her interview. So she just wanted to just make sure that she can get through that encounter with him. But it didn't work out in her favor that day. And from what her story is that, he forced her to his home, violated her repeatedly. I believe like how she got away. I think she said she grabbed something and hit him with it or threw it at him. And then she got up and like booked it out of the bedroom and ran straight to school and reported it to like the campus, like security. So she was like, she reported it right away. But she did talk about, experiencing issues with her family, because I want to say Jen was saying she was in a foster home or adopted. It's like she wasn't with her biological family at that time. She was living with someone, and she talked about like almost like being shamed for the incident, like somehow she had some type of fault. You sometimes hear people talk about when they report something that happened to them and them getting shamed for like, okay, well, if you hadn't done this or that, like, so she talked about that, the emotional trauma that she experienced just from the part with just at home. So it was just layers to just her trauma. I remember at one point her daughter even publicly spoke out, because at the time Jen was still being anonymous when she was telling her side of the story. So we didn't see her face. Like some people was trying to say she wasn't even Black. So part of the interview was her, saying, hey, I am Black. And this did happen to me. Then even in that interview, a cousin ended up calling in and got on the live, and then her and Jen started going back and forth, because I think the cousin kind of chimed in on the chat like, yo, I know her. Jen was being raised by my grandma. So they allowed her to come on the line, and it's like she and Jen kind of started arguing. And I think the content creator ended up just having to let the other lady go because she was doing like a lot on the call. But Jen basically was accusing her of kind of being paid by Nicki Minaj and her team to spew out the narrative that Jen was lying, because she was like, prior to this cousin and her, they were good. It wasn't like that. And then it's like suddenly she started peeping that her cousin was posting on her socials that she was chilling with Nicki Minaj and doing all this, that, and the third. And it's just like, whoa, like, what's the deal here? You kicking it with this woman? And then suddenly it turned into, okay, the cousin kind of putting it out there like Kenneth didn't rape her, like this, that, and the third. So like, I mean, it got really intense in that interview with Jen, accusing her cousin of just lying and just saying whatever for, just kind of like a clout chaser, like just to be in the good with, yes, very sad, Brittany. Like Jen accused the cousin of like just trying to just say anything that Nicki may wanted her to say just to kind of be in the circle. So she felt like basically like her cousin was collecting a check from Nicki Minaj. So Jen wasn't here for that. It's just like, yo, like, this happened to me. We are family and this, that, and the third. But, like I said, the ladies were just going at it on the call. So like I said, I've been following this story for some time. I have seen content creators, like a particular one that's really going hard with like posting like Kenneth Petty is this, that, and the third. Like she clearly is no Nicki Minaj fan, no Barb. No Barb? Is that what they heard her people that no, she's no Barb, but she's like, listen, I'm not here for any assault or abuse on, and I don't care who you are. So celebrity or not, I believe this woman, Jen, who we know now to be Jennifer, what we say her last name, Hoff. I don't know, Huff. I'm not quite sure how she pronounced it, but in the interview, they were just referring to her as Jen. She talked about she had moved away from New York. She was now living in another state. But like I said, like even back then, her daughter had gotten on at one point, did a live, just trying to just defend her mom, talk about just the hard time they've gotten with the threats and just how the negative impacts of their life as a result of what happened to her mom, excuse me, like what, more than 20 years ago. Jen was very emotional in the interview because she's still, she's still dealing with the trauma of it all. I don't recall her talking about like receiving counseling and things like that, but it was a pretty deep interview, and she sounded like, she was telling the truth about what happened, like, because as she was talking, like, she just seemed like it was like she was reliving the trauma all over again. Like, you can hear it in her voice. And it was just very sad. I just remember that day. It was just very sad listening to it all. Brittany Davis. Obviously, we weren't there, but the fact that she reported immediately and that Kenneth had a reputation is suspect to me. He has a lot of mugshots. He does, Brittany. She said in the community, like, he had a reputation in the community of being known as like the bad boy. That's why that day she saw him, it's just like, okay, let me keep it together because I don't want to set him off. Have we all, ladies, have you all been in an environment? I know I have, where like, say you go somewhere, because we hear our stories all the time with like women that reject men and then it goes left and the man want to try to start getting violent. I think not that long ago, it was a story with Trick Daddy in the media where he had like paid, like got these girls in the club. And then when they got in there, it's almost like they ghosted him and shook him, and he didn't appreciate that. So I guess he felt like was since I got you in the club, like you need to be rolling with me all night. Like, and that went left. So it happens. I know from my own experience, like growing up, especially more so probably in my earlier 20s, going into environments, say, for example, being at a gas station or parking lot of a grocery store and men approaching you and you just feeling very uncomfortable and wanting to just keep it cordial. And I remember developing a habit of, okay, instead of just saying, no, you can't have my phone number. Well, hey, I'll take yours, something, because you just not wanting to just create a problem. So it's just, you're going into survival mode. And that's kind of what I picked up from Jen when she talked about that day when she encountered him at the bus stop. Brittany, that does make him a rapist, but it doesn't. That does make him a rapist, but it doesn't look good. No, it doesn't. Like he did time behind it. That's the thing. I can't remember. I don't know the exact type of charge that he got from, but he did do time because of it. So he was found guilty. So that's not even up for, debate. It's almost like what she said happened. That's what he basically did his time for. And the way I'm perceiving it, Nicki's wanting her to come out and just be like, okay, yeah, he did time for that, but I want you to recant what you said. So therefore, even though he did the time for it, you can recant and be like, well, no, that wasn't true. And I don't know what she would look for to happen as far as with his record. If she did, I don't know what that would look like. Let's just say she did today, fast forward, recanted. Would that result in any change with his record? Like, because he did the time, is on there with it. I don't know. I really don't know what that would look like. I guess if she recanted, it would kind of impact his record and they would just be able to remove it from his record of him being, a rapist, and him, the limitations that he had against him with being around other children. Because from what, I've heard, like when you're registered, like you can't be within a certain distance of like schools, maybe even churches, like places where children are. And then you have to register. So therefore, it's known at any given time as public record where you are. So I guess like if Jen were to come out and be like, oh, okay, no, he didn't do that, then that would, I guess, have a big impact on their lives, because it wouldn't have them limited to like where they can live, how they can move, them having to report in, all of that. So yes, it would make a difference and make their life a lot easier. But your past is your past. That's the thing. We have to move with intent, because when you do something, and even if you learn from it, that's still part of your quote unquote resume. Like, that doesn't go anywhere. It's still there. You can learn from it, but you can't erase it. Kind of like a bankruptcy. Yeah, you file, you have your discharge, you continue to buy things eventually, but it's still on there. Like, sis, bro, you had a bankruptcy. Like, it don't go anywhere. It's still there. Yeah, it's still there. So I just think that, Nicki chose, I mean, because from my understanding, this man, Nicki, and this man like grew up together. So I've never heard Nicki say that she knew Jen, but it seemed like back then around that time, Nicki knew Kenneth Petty. So from what I've always heard, as far as with them connecting, it was more of like a reconnection type situation. Like, they knew each other before from the block, somebody from back around the block. But I guess maybe she didn't know Jen, but she knew Kenneth Petty. And then I don't know how they rekindled. I never heard the background story of how they reconnected. But like I say, the fact that she chose to link up with someone who had such a sketchy past, and then you have this big brand, how do you not take that into consideration? That part. I'm still working on that part, y'all. One take. Nicki married him knowing all of this, so she knew that her address would be out there. I agree. Like, we can't choose to move a certain way and then be mad at the result of it. Like, this is where your critical thinking comes in, where common sense come in, where, like, how do you ignore that? And then especially when you're somebody with such a large brand. When you have a large brand, you have to be conscious of just any and everything at any given time. Going back to CK, Crystalline Kerosene, and her brand, and with the white MMSE, like, that's just my thing. Is like, you just have to just be conscious with your brand and how anything that may impact or have to do with the person you're with, how it can impact you. Your children can impact your brand, but they're your children. So it is what it is. But when you're choosing like a partner, like, okay, that's a whole decision. She made the decision to go, be with him. But like, say, now Nicki's a mom, her son grows up, he do something, impacts her brand. That's her child. So it's like, it wasn't like something in advance she could have like prevented. So we got to move with intent. And this is an example of like how Nicki just chose to just focus on other things. I don't know if it was the physical, like, look, he was putting it down so well to where it just made Sis just throw her whole career out the window, overlook everything, and then eventually resulting in a pregnancy, a beautiful child. And then now here we are. Here's another thing, y'all. Y'all let me know, because I don't really be on Twitter like that, but I was listening to another content creator last night, and let me go to my notes because I was making some notes. He was saying that her Twitter handle used to be Mrs. Petty, but she recently changed it to Nicki Minaj. So if any of y'all be on Twitter, can anybody co-sign that or confirm that? Because I don't be on there at all, so I don't know. But that's basically what's been said. Like, so the question is she trying now to detach herself from him? Because it's just like, oh snap, this getting real. What they say, a day late and a dollar short, so I don't know. So yeah, if anybody got any information pertaining to her little Twitter account name situation, please share. Brittany Davis, that's so traumatizing, asking her to say it didn't even happen to make Nicki's life easier. Listen, like, that goes into just, living in a world of just many people just feeling entitled, that whole sense of entitlement of, I'm about self, damn you. Like, I just think far too many people in the world move that way. And is not a good look. It doesn't look bad, and Lord forbids, Jen come out with receipts that says that supports, what she's saying they did as far as the bribe. Because like I said, for her to be taking it to a lawsuit and to have a whole lawyer, I don't see why why her case would have been taken on if she didn't have some type of receipts. Like, think about it, y'all. When you're drunk, when you're going for a lawsuit, you coming with receipts because, I mean, what's the point? You about to, first of all, you want your case, someone to be like, yes, we're going to take that case. And then you want to feel like you're going to win because you about to be out this money and paying these retainers. So it's going to, it's what they say was done in the dark comes out in the day. So I feel like it is going to come out. I know from what I've researched, like bribery, like that comes with a hefty consequence, so if it does come out that there was bribery, that's not good for Nicki. It could possibly even result in jail time because, as they say, that's tampering with the case. It's just all kinds of stuff, y'all. It's too much. Brittany Davis. Nicki could have had any man and she chose this one and wants everyone to twist because she didn't choose someone clean cut. Shake my head. I can't. Listen, I know I can't. I think that a lot of times, just me speaking just from a woman's perspective and as a woman, we can get so bent on what we want, wanting someone or something to where, excuse me, we'll twist the narrative, paint a picture of something that's not there just to justify something being right. Like, okay, I want to be with someone so badly. I want a relationship so badly. I want a man so badly to where I'm willing to compromise myself or to lower my standards to make adjustments just for the sake of being able to say, okay, I'm booed up. I got the ring. I got a baby. Like, these are things that I just see women do very often because your average woman does not want to be alone. The average heterosexual woman would like to get married, would like to have children. So there's just certain things that just as women, we're wired to just naturally want. And as I've talked about in other videos, our marriage rates are very low. Our rates of babies outside of wedlock is very high. So you have people who are like they really want to do things differently. Like, I really want to get married first. I really, want to have my baby by my husband, to where they're willing to overlook things about a person to make them, to fit them into their world, even though there's things that's kind of questionable or shady. You're like, well, I mean, well, it's okay, but at the end of the day, it's not okay. But at that time, you told yourself it's okay. Do we think that today Nicki is saying it's okay? Do we think that if she had it to do all over again, she would have kind of done differently? Let's just say, even if she would have dated him but not married him or not even had a child by him, I don't feel like she regrets her child. I feel like, when she's looking at this situation, it's just like, wow, this is a lot. And I really put myself out there for this man. And I can just only hope and pray that he don't disappoint me and that I don't live to regret the moves that I made, even though it did result in a baby. So I just think that there's a lot, that's playing in Nicki's head, but there's no sympathy there, at least from me, for her. And it seemed like for many people, because his background wasn't something that just popped out of thin air. It was there. Like, his record, like, that's public record. You knew it. You said you knew him from back in the day. You knew how he rolled. So, like, you knew him better than we knew him. You knew him better than we knew him. So we can't even roll on the her just not knowing him, or she just randomly met him and didn't know everything about his past. Like, I've heard, like, she knew him. They came from the same area, like the same hood. So now, fast forward to today, she's stuck having to deal with the consequences of the decisions she make, as we all do. And that's the thing, rich, famous or not, like that's something that we all cannot get away from. Now, people with money, sometimes, they can buy their way out of things, finesse their way out of things. But in this situation, it's not one of those that, okay, Nicki can just drop a check for. Because a lot of times I feel like that's what people with money are used to doing. They're just drop writing a check and paying for things to just disappear. And more often than not, that works out for them. But then you have those occasions where it just don't work out that way. It doesn't work out that way. And they're forced to have to just sit in whatever mess that was created, that they were a part of, and just try their best to just try to work through it and hope that their brand isn't forever tarnished from it. I'm a person, I believe, like, I've seen people bounce back, come back from so many different things that have happened in their life. So I even believe that, Nicki can still redeem herself from all of this, but I feel like she would have to disconnect herself from her now husband, like basically in that whole relationship, for that to no longer be the focal point when you're hearing Nicki Minaj's name in the media, because that's what I feel like is happening right now. All of this is overshadowing her career, her accomplishments, all of that. It's like it's been overshadowing it for a minute. I mean, she still has a large fan base, a large number of followers. She have a lot of supporters out there, but at the same time, it's just normal to not want your name out there in a negative light. Then she has a child. So now the child is having to grow up in a time where his mom and his dad are being spoken on in a negative light. He is a baby today. He will not forever be a baby. Brittany, it's possible, rich or not, Nicki still had that hood mentality, and so she chose accordingly. However, I agree with you. I think she was getting desperate, and he somehow seemed like a safe choice. I've heard Nicki talk about, because wanting to be a mom. And you all know, remember when Cardi came out and we all seen that, Cardi got with Offset, they was getting married, they had a baby coming, and for a long time, people been kind of comparing the two. That's gonna happen. And excuse me, I think a lot of the beef between them just came from just the outside energy of people kind of putting them up against one another. So with the whole comparison thing, if you lined up both of the ladies and took a look at their personal lives, you seen on paper, it looked as though in totality, Cardi was winning. Cardi had the man who then became her husband. She had the baby, and she had the popping career. Basically, she was looking like a woman that had it all. Cardi's also younger than Nicki Minaj. So Nicki Minaj is like in her 30s. Cardi's still in her 20s. So I feel like Nicki just low key was like, okay, what we not gonna do is let old girl just outshine me, outdo me in all these areas. So I'm gonna get me my man and get my husband and then get my baby and still have my career popping. But that career piece is the part that's taking that hit right now. And I think with all these distractions going on, that has impacted Nicki's career as to even her getting to work and getting in the studio. Like it's kind of like far in between where she's kind of doing work. I want to say years ago, did she say that she was going to retire or anything like that? But it seemed like I can recall where she was kind of saying that she was going to take a step back from music. But then since then, I've seen her kind of drop some things here and there. So if anybody got anything on that, let me know, because it's like she kind of like disappeared. I know she had her little radio. Is that still a thing? I never listened to it. Where she had like her radio program. I've heard her on there where she was going off, as far as I think that was following when Wendy shaded her on her show about being with Kenneth and things, and Nicki went off. I think that was around the time when we kind of learned that she actually had married Kenneth. probably in that rant, she might have even referred to him as her husband, because I think Nicki kind of low key got married to that man. It wasn't anything that was made like known collectively, like in advance, like, hey, I'm about to get married. It was one of those things. It was like, oh, did Nicki refer to him as her husband? So it's like, that's kind of what I can recall when all that was popping off, when she was kind of out there being vocal about her relationship, where she was, on the defense with people, talking about, who she chose as her mate. And she was like, yes, this is who I chose. F you just got to deal with it. Like, that was the energy she had. Okay, do you, boo, do you. But at the same time, when we choose to be with someone that has a shady past, we also have to factor in, when you're in the public eye, people are going to have something to say about that. So with that being said, you're going to have to know, okay, well, I'm just going to have to roll with the punches, because yeah, his past is kind of shaky and it is what it is. So I'm just going to have to roll with the punches and not just be trying to get defensive of it, because it is what it is. I don't feel like she took that energy. It's almost like she had an energy of, if I can ignore it and overlook it, then you should be able to. That's more of the vibe that I took from her. Brittany Davis says, around the time she was trying to get pregnant, she said she was taking a break from music to work on having a family. Okay. So I thought I remember her talking about like taking a break. Is she still doing her radio thing? Yeah, I wonder, excuse me. I wonder if she's still, if she's still doing that. So here's another picture of them. So let's just read more into this document. It might talk more about the details of the suit. She says that Nicki called her in March 2020 to offer to fly her to Los Angeles or to send her publicist to meet with Huff to craft a statement recanting plaintiff's rape charge. Huff says she denied the offers and told Minaj, I need you to know, woman to woman, that this happened. According to the legal document, Huff's brother called a few days later to say the two people reached out to the family member offering $500,000 from Minaj if Huff wrote a letter recanting her rape claim. Huff hung up distraught that Nicki Minaj allegedly instructed her associates to contact her brother per the suit. Furthermore, Huff alleges the 10-time Grammy nominee tried to bribe her with $20,000 and offered to send happy birthday videos to Huff's daughter for her Sweet 16 as a bonus. Okay, stop it. I cannot. Not a video. Okay, carry on. As a direct result of the actions of the defendant Minaj and defendant Petty, Huff has been traumatized her entire life, the lawsuit reads. Plaintiff has moved to multiple states to avoid intimidation and harassment by defendant Minaj, defendant and their allies, legal teams, and fans. Petty's lawyer, Michael Goldstein, declined to comment when contacted by E! News. E! News reached out to a rep for Minaj and hasn't heard back. Huff has alleged that Petty held her at knife point when they were teenagers in Queens, New York. He took her to his nearby house and violently raped her. The lawsuit alleges. Listen, that's a lot. And basically, that's basically what I was hearing. And like what she was saying pretty much those things in that interview that I heard like a year ago. So that's basically what I was trying to say a little while ago, written in that article, because that's pretty much, Jennifer hasn't steered from what she had put out there 1 year ago. From what I read, that didn't change up from what I heard her say during that interview about a year ago. One Take says, Nicki has a pattern of protecting predators. Her brother assaulted his 11-year-old several times. His 11-year-old several times and paid all his court fees and still stand by him. I remember when that happened. I remember when, hearing that she had paid. I want to say she paid for the wedding too, because with that assault, when all that came out, from when I can recall, But I can recall he married a woman that had like children already. She had at least 2 kids already. And one of the children walked in on him assaulting the child. So that's kind of how it came out. And if I can recall, that incident happened shortly into the marriage. But yes, if I can recall, Nicki paid for that wedding. I remember seeing pictures and things before, but from I can recall, Nicki Minaj paid for the wedding, and then with the whole legal thing, she was definitely out there, saying, "Hey, my brother's innocent," this, that, and the third. I know that was her brother, and it was a tough spot for Nicki to be in. The same evidence, the court scene, I can only say that that's the same evidence that she saw. So how she rationalized her actions as it came to her defense of her brother, I don't know. I feel like you can still love your family member, but still disconnect when you see that they done some wrongful-ish. Like, just because you kind of to separate from somebody who wants some other stuff, it doesn't mean that you don't love them. Love and then supporting the behaviors of somebody, that don't necessarily go together. They can be separated. Yes, it was a stepdaughter. It was his then wife's daughter. Love James 28. Nicki going to jail, period. Listen, if there's a whole lawsuit out there, I'm going to go with there are some receipts to back that. So I'm going to go with there's some receipts to back that. If nothing else, if she ain't going to jail, it's going to be her coming up off some money, because at this point it's a, what do you call that? It's a lawsuit. So it's not a criminal case. So that's going to be a whole nother type of case for her to even be considered to be, doing any time. So I don't know if they would go off of, okay, well, we'll first go this route, see if we can win our civil suit, that part. And then we can use that win to support trying to go after her for criminal activity. So I don't know if they kind of strategize and plotting, but I do know like it's separate. So I haven't heard anything as far as any like criminal charges or anything like that been put out against her. If you know anything different, drop it in the comments. Let us know. Love Jane 28. Kenny has 5 kids with 5 different women. Look, I'm not surprised, but I never really knew what that looked like as far as like with his previous relationships and children. So that means he did all this like post him getting out from being locked up, because I'm not even sure how long he was locked up, like what kind of time he did for that assault charge. But wow, if only we can be in the mind of Nicki when she made the decision of making him her husband and father of her child. Brittany Davis, I don't blame her for her brother's actions, but I do hold her accountable for standing by him, defending him with all that evidence in her face. Right. Like, I feel like you can love somebody, but still not support their behavior. So I wouldn't look for her to ever tell someone, no, I don't love my brother anymore. But I would look for her to say, okay, I don't support the behavior. The evidence was there, and it was what it was, and I had to deal with that. So I had to kind of disconnect myself. Like, that's a whole different type of conversation, and there's nothing wrong with that. But that's not what she did. I know Nicki's talk. I know her mom. If you guys ever heard her mom's story, her mom has a really deep story about just abuse and things that she dealt with Nicki's father. Nicki's father passed away like since this whole pandemic. He was hit by a car. But I've heard the mother tell her story about just being abused. I think she has a book out. But Nicki's talked about like the just trauma during the childhood, the abuse witnessed at the hands of the father, the dad burning the house down, their house down, the dad beating her mom in the streets. Like, Nicki has a lot of trauma, and these are things that, she's talked about. So you guys can research that. So she's endured a lot of trauma. And I believe that the trauma that she's endured is playing out in the decisions that she's making today in her life as it pertains to her personal life, aligning herself with abusers. That's what she's seen. She's seen abuse. So in her life, it's like she came up in an environment of abuse. So therefore, being in an environment in a dysfunctional environment, like that's like normal for her. That's my opinion of the situation. So, I mean, that's the thing about, opinions. We all have one. And Nicki's a celebrity, so people are going to talk. She can either choose to be silent or she can come out and make a statement to defend herself. I don't know really what she would even say right now pertaining to everything that's out in regards to this situation with her husband. Like, what do you say? Like, what do you say? It's like she effed up. And I would imagine she's kind of in a damage control type mindset. Like, okay, I got to fix this. How can I fix this? Who can fix this? We need answers. I imagine she got a lot of people on payroll and they're scrambling to try to figure out, listen, how we finna make this situation look better? How are we going to get out of this? How can we get all of this thrown out? Like, she's scrambling. Like, I think she's scrambling, but she wouldn't have had to scramble if she would have acknowledged the writing that was on the wall beforehand. She knew the guy. So where is the surprise? And I don't know what he does for a living. I don't even know if he got a job or anything. So I don't know if it's just a sugar mama situation where like he on payroll. Like, I don't even know what purpose he's serving in her life, really. You don't really see them kind of out and about or anything. So I don't know if he operating like her assistant. Like, what is he doing? Is he watching the baby while she go do shows, get made up? Like, I don't even know what we're doing here. Like, okay, Kenneth Petty, why are you here again? And if it's just to throw her back out, like, she could have low-key been messing around with him and had him do all that and not bring him into her business. Remember, I say we got to keep our business personal life separate. But she interjected him into her business, her brand. I think she takes care of him. I mean, given that he has that criminal record, I don't know what kind of job that he's going to be able to be pulling in, making good money, like without him kind of being a businessman or having his own business. So I'm going to go with, it seems like, yeah, she's taking care of him. She got a bunch of money she can afford to, but if that is the dynamic of the relationship, do y'all think as much respect being given to him from her? How y'all think she talked to him? Do y'all think she talked to him crazy? Because I can imagine, I can only hear her throwing up in his face whenever she get pissed off, like the sacrifices she's made. Like, just think about it. Just like if it was just yourself and you just with somebody and not something extreme like what he's done, but like, you've made sacrifices. And when they start acting crazy, do you think that you would like not like say like, look at the sacrifice I'm making for you and this is what you're doing? Like, I'd imagine like that comes up, that she reminds him like what she's given up, like what she's put on the line for him. And so it just would make me wonder, like, him being there, if there is any type of disconnect or tension, if he's there out of, well, kind of like guilt, like, okay, well, fine, I'm just going to go shop. Like, I don't see how with everything going on right now with them, they're just really connecting and vibing, and is good energy around that house. I don't see how it can be, really. Brittany Davis, I don't blame her for her brother's actions. Yeah, okay, we read that one. Let's just say, Brittany, I'm sure because he's under her control, she can say, I do this for you, I do that, if he starts acting. Yes, excuse me. Safari has talked about how Nicki have gone in just on him. Remember when they were together, and I think they probably was together maybe like 10 years, but he would talk about just the energy that he would get from her. I've heard him say, that she was abusive. Um, but yeah, again, back when Safari was around, like his money, he just wasn't broke, but his money wasn't looking like her money. So I'm pretty sure, you had that, what they call it, that masculine energy coming out when you know that you're the one, doing the most financially in the relationship. So when you know that, I think more often than not, it's going to come with a different type of energy coming out of that woman, because she's like, okay, I'm the one that's really putting in the work here and doing the most. So things need to be going my way, like that type of energy. So I don't see why with Mr. Petty it'd be any different than really. Only relationship that I feel like she probably didn't have that type of energy with was Meek Mills. Meek Mills, I'm sure his money, he went on a level of her, but I don't see that she would have had that type of energy with him, because Meek Mill still had a name for himself. And he strikes me as just a man who's secure in who he is and knows his worth and value, and know, okay, I don't have to deal with that. So I feel like in that relationship, it was a dynamic of, okay, Meek having that masculine energy, holding it down, and Nicki falling in line, you know, playing more of a submissive role. But I feel like you have a lot of women who prefer to have more of that masculine role, because it's the control. I see it just with women daily, where I'll see women with masculine energy, and then they still choose to stay in those relationships where they can dominate that man, versus choosing to seek a man who has that alpha personality or masculine energy, and falling in line with, his walk. I think sometimes we women, can choose to take the safe route, especially if you've been in a situation where you have been in the role reversal where the man was leading and in control, and he took advantage, abused you, and you were like, listen, never again. So it just goes back to the thought process. Safari is still a mess. Oh yeah, he's beyond a mess. Like, yeah, he need his own video, separate video. He needs his own separate video about him. Yeah, that's a lot. That was a mess. And then he's also another one where anybody who chooses to hook up with him, you already know what you're getting into. And if you still proceed to go, then anything that happens or comes with it, like, that's on you. Again, no tattoo tears from me. It is what it is. Do better, choose better. Brittany Davis, I think she likes to be in control because of fear. If I'm in charge, things can't go left, probably due to her childhood, like you mentioned. That's the only thing that makes sense to me, because if any of you listening ever known somebody who did go through traumatic experiences or abuse, think about the decisions like that they make in their lives. Do you see dysfunction in the decisions that they make, like in their present, and you know that there was like this dysfunction in their past? Like, when you think about the two, does it line up and make you say, okay, well, now it makes sense, or I can see why sis or bruhs in that situation, I remember he said this happened when he was a kid, and, Black folks collectively in our community, we not trying to go get counseling and get help for stuff with, Black folks believing and turning to Jesus. Like, and I'm a advocate of counsel. I think that counseling can be good, but I know collectively for our culture, it's not something that's pushed heavily. More, I'm starting to hear pushed, and people starting to become comfortable with it. I know Charlemagne the God on the Breakfast Club talks about, regularly seeing his therapist. I don't think it's a bad thing, but when you do choose to seek counsel, you have to put that work into outside of that office. You have to implement those skills, those things that you're being taught, those coping skills, the critical thinking skills. So therefore, when you leave that office, you can go out there in that world and make better decisions. Because what's the point of you going and talking to somebody about how you can get your life together, and then when you leave, you're not implementing those things that you learned in that 45-minute session? you paying for that more often than not. Your insurance may cover maybe 6 sessions or something, but after that, you're pretty much paying for those visits. So I think that's also another issue within our community with not having the resources to pay for such services, because a lot of Black people in our community don't have medical insurance, so they can't afford to seek counsel. That's a whole situation in itself. So then they're just going through life, getting how they live, talking to their friends, trying the best they can to make better decisions. I think, with the whatever Nicki encountered during her childhood, she chose to put her energy into her career. That was the distraction for her. And she basically, like what happens a lot where women, females, young girls, they will link up with somebody who has toxic behaviors like their fathers. And a lot of times women will do that subconsciously, like they not even thinking about it, and it's not an intentional thing. It's just that's what they gravitate to, because, okay, I was used to receiving love, or what I perceived as love, in a dysfunctional way. So now I'm out here in the world trying to make it, and this man crossed my path, and he's demonstrating dysfunctional behavior, some of which I've witnessed. And you connect it to, well, I mean, my dad used to do that, so he was still around, or he told me he loved me, so it's just layers to it, to where that's how it becomes generational. It becomes generational, and because you think that it's okay, because you look around, it's like, well, everybody else's situation look like this, or my situation look better than theirs, so let me just continue to shut up and do what I need to do, because I don't want to be over here complaining, because at least I got a man over here with me and my kids, versus Sharon next door, who over there by herself. So even though mine's over here might be knocking me upside the head, drinking, cussing me out, hitting on the kids, at least he's here. And I think many women have that mindset of, okay, well, at least he's here. He's not over there. He not at Lisa's house. He not at Karen's house. He over here with me. So he must want to be with me. Brittany Davis says, our trauma is not our fault, but our healing is our responsibility. That part, that's a true statement. Our healing is our responsibility. It does us no good to just choose, I call it choose, to just go through life justifying your present shortcomings to your past, your trauma, your abuse. I get that. My question is, what are you going to do about that? Because that's the part that people don't want to skip to, because that's where the work comes in, and people don't want to put the work in. People don't want to put the work in. It's far easier to just sit in it and just talk about what happened to you and soak in it. Some even still cry about it, than it is to wipe your tears away and say, you know what? I'm about to do something about it. I'm about to regain my power, because I'm tired of just feeling hurt and broken. I'm tired of having unhealthy relationships. I'm tired of being alone. So I'm ready to fix it. I'm ready to do something different. As they say, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different outcome. And I think in our community, that's what we do. We do it better than anybody else. We demonstrate the same behaviors. We speak on the same talking points on how it's dysfunctional, but collectively, we're not putting in the work to try to make a change for the purpose of getting a different result. Like when you think about, like when you hear other cultural groups talk about like what their past look like and all this and that, they're heavily, they do a lot of work on, they focus their attention a lot on the changes that they've made. Like what they say, don't talk about it, be about it. Like, I love that saying. I'm a don't talk about it, be about it type person. I'm very action oriented. So if I'm having a conversation with you and you're talking to me about your plight, I'm gonna listen to what you say, because I need to understand that. But After I hear what you got to say, we're rolling into action. We're not just going to sit in it of, okay, what happened to you? We're going to roll into action. And I hear collectively, like other cultural groups, like your Hispanic cultural group, your Asian cultural groups, whatever cultural group it is, they will discuss past, I'm sorry, but they will also talk about the things that the changes they've made for the purpose of creating something different, for the purpose of getting into a different or a better situation. They're very solution oriented. And collectively, our community, I don't find us to be that. I think we spend more energy focusing on the problem versus the solution. That's, my opinion. Brittany Davis says, exactly. People in general want to achieve success because they are not willing to sacrifice and put the work in outside of legal or racial barriers. I mean, of course, legal, racial barriers, that's going to always be there. However, that does not impact the efforts you put into trying to make a change for your life, for your family, to set the example for members in your community. Like, that has nothing to do with that. It all starts in the mind of wanting more, wanting better, wanting something different. Like, we all, like healthy minded people, we all have the ability to do that. Yeah, everything starts in the mind before we can, put a plan into place, like, and put things into action. We got to think about it, because when we think about it, then it's going to result in us saying, okay, I've already ironed out this. These are the things that I would like to do. Okay, how can I go about doing them? Let me start looking into maybe some programs that can help me maybe get my GED, that can make me get my associate's degree. Let me look into this online thing that I've been hearing people talk about. Maybe I can take a couple of classes. Um, I like doing hair. Maybe I can finally go ahead and get my cosmetology, license. Like, it's not that hard. It's not that deep. It's just taking it beyond conversation and putting action. Because as someone said, if it just only stays in conversation, it's just a dream, because it cannot possibly become reality without you putting the work in. You gotta put into action, like you gotta move, you gotta show movement. There's going to be, sacrifices that are going to come along when with anything there's going to be like a sacrifice. Well, one sacrifice might be your time, where, okay, you're going to be busy on Saturdays now for a certain period of time, but that's just temporarily. It's just a sacrifice. Or after I get off my 9 to 5, I got to go and do this afterwards. It's a sacrifice. It's not permanent. It's a sacrifice for something bigger. And we only when something is worth that sacrifice. Like, I can't tell you that. I can't tell you, well, that should be, that should be worth it. Or as I say, everybody should find their motivator, had a motivation, whatever that may be. You got to find it and get it, because that's what's going to push you through. That's going to keep you going. That's going when you feel tired, when you feel weak, hungry, whatever it is. When you have that thing in your mind of what you're motivated by, you're going to be able to continuously reflect back on that and be like, okay, this is why I'm doing it. Okay, let me get back in the game. Like, that's a real thing. And what motivates me is not going to motivate you. What motivates you not going to motivate me. So you got to find your thing. And from that thing, build from there. Because let's just say, just going back with Nicki. Nicki isn't Nicki Minaj and big like this just cut. Like, this was work she had to put in. It had to start in her mind. I'm getting out of this hood. I'm going to create a better environment for my family. So it was a mindset that she had to have to get to where she is. She had to put that work in. Right. Look at Umar Johnson. He's been talking about opening up a school for 10 years. Where is all that money that's been donated? I heard that was a question that was posed to him. I don't know if he answered it. I don't know. I mean, when I first learned who he was, maybe about 4 years ago, I was like, okay, I'm hearing what he's talking about. And I think even at that time, he had been talking about the school for a long time, and I didn't know, because it was my first time hearing him talk about the school. So I'm like, okay, let me hear what he's talking about. I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt. I was interested in his clinical, psychology background because it, mirrored, interest that I had as far as with my education at the time. So I'm like, I'm here for it. I learned some things pertaining to the psychology dynamic, the school system, me being a parent. Okay. I was able to like implement some of those things he talked about. Okay. So the school part, it's like, I don't know what it is with the school. Like, I feel like at this point, I feel like that school whole thing with him is more of a, I think in the beginning he was genuine about it as far as with wanting to have a school for the reasons that he had. And then as time went on, that idea became further and further of a reach. And then it's just like, well, forget it. People still keep asking me about it. I'm just going to tell the people what they may want to hear. And I'll just collect the money and just still try to speak positive into the community and other areas. So therefore, okay, I can sleep better at night when I know I'm still accepting money from these people because I'm out here still speaking knowledge to the community. I just feel like in his mind, he came up with a reason to justify his behaviors being okay. I believe he started out with good intent, but today, fast forward, I think it's on some other type of tip. I don't think it's that at all, but he's so knee deep in it. The idea of him coming outright saying there never was going to be a school or there's not going to be a school, it will force him to then have to deal with refunding people, reimbursing people. I don't know what method he was using of paying people back to where how he would even be able to keep track of that since it's been like an ongoing thing. Like it's something to where I feel like he'd rather just not even have to talk about it because I personally don't feel like, and 4 years ago he had 700 and something $1,000 in the bank. I don't know how much he's saying he has now, but we ain't ever seen him working at no job or him talking about working jobs. I know he get paid for speaking engagements, but with this whole pandemic going on, we ain't really been seeing a lot of that's popping off with people. So I feel like that money that had been getting collected, he was living off of that. So no telling if any, I don't think any of that money is left. I just think it's gone. And as the donations are coming in, it's paying for his lifestyle in the present. Like, I don't feel like he's balling out or I just think that money's gone. It's gotten spent from the travels, doing whatever. It's gone. And he just rather not talk about it because he don't have anything to tell the people. So it now comes back to people have to use their brains and form their own conclusions as to what they believe the situation is and go with that. And the only way you can form that opinion, you have to look at what the facts are that are in front of you. You got to pay attention to history. You got to look at the timeline. You got to pay attention to what's been said, what has been said today, like all of that. And I think from what I've learned, a lot of his Black women are, his fan base or his followers or supporters are heavily Black women. And how he benefits from that is that there's a lot of Black women who don't have men and who are single parents. So it's almost like him being women's husbands in their brain, like their virtual man. And it's just like, okay, I don't have a man in my life or in my house to support. If I had one, I'd want him to be on his purpose or look like this. So let me go ahead and support this brother. I don't have somebody over here with Lil Ray Ray to tell him right from wrong, but this man over here trying to work to get a school. And so he Ray Ray virtual daddy. Like I really think that collectively a lot of women have made him as part of their family because legit they don't have anybody tangible, anybody that they can touch that's there to fill those roles. So it's just like, all right, well, we finna just attach ourselves to him. He talk a good game. He nice looking, they might find him to be attractive. He's not married. Maybe one day I can meet him. Every now and then, he'll talk about, I've seen him talk about what kind of woman he looking for. And, if he was going to shoot your shot, what kind of queen you need to be looking for, what his standards, his requirements are, all kinds of stuff like that. It's hilarious, but you got to be, I think if you know who you are and you're secure in who you are, the things that he say and do, it wouldn't impact you greatly to where you finding yourself where you're taking an L because you followed him and he led you down the wrong path. Dr. Umar, when it comes to the school part, I kind of close that part out, but from my own personal experience and me listening to advice he's given pertaining to like child psychology, boys, school system, he's been on point with that. And I can vouch for that because I've followed some of the instructions within my state of what to do pertaining to my children. And it's worked out just as, he said. So I feel like he's legit when it comes to that area as far as the child psychology, the whole ADD thing. But that school stuff, that's something separate. So I try to keep it separate and not judge him as a whole, to just throw the whole man away. I haven't thrown him away completely because I think there is a thing with people to where you're not going to like all aspects of them. And you may recognize the good in them and say, okay, well, I'll entertain you in this area, but not at this area. Let's just say you see a man. Oh, he's cool. I wouldn't want him as my man, but he cool as a friend. So you choose to kind of keep him in that category versus making him your man. That's kind of how I look at, Umar Johnson. He's a trip, but I mean, he's a smart man. So he done finessed a lot of people and he's still doing it because if it wasn't working no more, it wouldn't still be talked about. So people still running him them cash apps. So about that school, I don't know. I sometimes even forget that he's still working on the school because the goalpost continues to get pushed back. So yeah, it's just a lot going on within our culture. And a lot that's going on in our culture is what contributes to some people feeling like our culture is trash. I feel like, our forefathers, that at a time when they were here, it wasn't trash. But today, as far as like in the present, I can't argue that anymore. Like the present, yes, it's a lot of trash behaviors and things taking place, but I separate that from like, from the past, like your 1960s before, 1970s before. That was a different time. But today we're clearly not operating or functioning as a community on that type of level. Our school systems collectively are trash. Our relationships collectively are trash. Our finances collectively are trash. Our health collectively is trash. Like, I can't think of like outside of just, I would even say like our music collectively is trash as it comes to like your most popular music is music that's speaking negative about like knocking off your op, calling women out their names, only wanting them, talking about sexualizing them. Like that's from a money standpoint, money has been made off of those narratives, but it's not positive images being spoken on about our community. So I would put that in a trash category. So someone made a point of saying, what other cultural group looks at any parts of our cultural group and say, as a culture, we should aspire to do that. And when they said that, I'm like, wow, like that's deep. So that's what made me say, okay, I get it when somebody says our culture is trash. But before, when I was hearing that being thrown out, I wanted more context to it as to say, are you talking about just as a whole, or are you just talking about what's showing up today? So when I've heard people speak on and say, okay, we're talking about today, I'm like, okay, yes, I can rock with that. But as a whole, no. But when we're talking about just today, yes, it's a whole hot mess. And I got videos out there talking about the mess. So check them out. Please, anybody who's here with us right now, if you can like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell. I welcome you. I'm a growing YouTuber and I want to get the word out. I want to interact with more people. So if you do have any topics or things you'd like for me to touch on, drop them in, like the video, drop them in the comments. I like to read comments. So I often respond back. But yeah, let me know, we're talking about this because it was a recommendation of one of the subscribers. So thank you again. But yes, each one teach one. So that's what I'm here. I'm here to just put the word out and talk about it. Just talk about how we can just do better as a community. That's what it's about. Just doing better. It's not about criticizing. Kenneth has a past, but we can't try to erase it by asking somebody to say they was lying. It don't work that way. It does not work that way. We have to own our stuff, take it in stride, learn from it, and do better. Period. I don't know what else to tell you. I mean, that's just life. Rich, famous, short, tall, cute, ugly. That's just anything. Accountability. So I think just for starters, if we as a people collectively start being more accountable, showing up more, demonstrating positive behaviors to our youth, we can start going places. But until then, we're going to be here. I'm reporting these videos on this tomfoolery within the Black culture, and we're going to talk about it. Period. So until the next broadcast, enjoy your Sunday. Peace.